Hey, somebody needs to deactivate the hidden camera. You have? Excellent. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. You are listening to The Professional Noticer. Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. Hey, thank you for making me a part of your week. My purpose here today and with every show we do is to play the part of a best friend or a coach. I want to help you live the life of your wildest dreams by giving you access to the greatest mentors the world has to offer today. The Professional Noticer is sponsored this week by our friends at Tucker ATV. You know, the sheer variety of power sport products at Tucker ATV will blow your mind. The Hustler turf equipment, the entire line of Echo power tools, and of course, every make and model of Polaris ATVs. Tucker ATV has the big Polaris side-by-sides, the even bigger Ranger Cruise, and you have to see the showroom. You have to experience the showroom. There's taxidermy, antique displays, and an indoor porch with a porch swing, comfortable chairs, a big screen television, and free coffee. Stop in and meet Shannon and Lisa Tucker. Or go on Facebook and read what Lisa writes. I mean, this is great stuff. And Shannon and Lisa treat customers like family, which is why folks from 14 states have done business with Tucker ATV. Highway 43 North in Jackson, Alabama, Tucker ATV, the small town business with the national reputation. Observations and answers, that's what we do here on the Professional Noticer. And as you know, we love it when somebody comes to the table with both. We have a returning guest. Now, we don't have many returning guests. I don't know if it's that they don't want to return or if we just have other options. But sometimes it just occasionally it'll come together and somebody will like us enough and we will like them a lot. And that's what we have today. We have the #1 New York Times bestselling author of, and I'm going to find out how many Scot Harvath novels he has written. But please welcome Brad Thor. Brad, thank you for being back with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Andy. And as I said offline, I always love coming back, and even with a summer cold. So hopefully the audience will forgive me if I have to mute the microphone a couple of times to cough. But thank you for having me back.
Well, man, I am excited about this. Shadow of Doubt. It comes out August 6th. And we can, right now, you can go and get on the list. You can pre-order this book right now. But this is, how many Scot Harvath novels have you done?
So it's Harvath, and this is interesting. I grew up with friends. So Harvath is a friend of my wife. Harvath, actually, there's a real Harvath out there, and that's how I got the name. That Harvath is a friend of my wife's. I grew up with Horvaths, though, in Chicago. So if you've ever known a Horvath in your life, it is hard to switch to the Harvath thing. But I've written 24 novels. 23 have been with Harvath as the protagonist. And as you and I have talked about before, Andy, I tell people that my books are like the James Bond movies, that it doesn't matter if you've ever read a Brad Thor book before. Doesn't matter if you've ever seen a Bond movie. If the new one is in theaters, you can go see the new one and you won't be missing anything. It's the same thing with my books. Yeah.
They stand alone. And, but I got to say, they do stand alone because I've read several of them that way. But I also love how the characters link. You can pick up one of these and you already know the characters. You already know some of these people. And so they become, I guess, important to us as you continue to write. They become more important and they become incredibly real. I love this character. And
thank you.
I've known about you since Lions of Lucerne, and
a couple decades ago.
Yeah, I just and so just talking with you about this stuff is awesome. So tell me that he is about to go on a vacation. He thinks.
Yeah, he thinks. So it's interesting because if you're going to write the same character every single year and do a new book every year, you really have to come up with different ideas. You have to reveal a little bit about the character nobody knew before. And I had planted an Easter egg several books ago. Something had happened at the end of one of the books. Again, doesn't matter if you read it or not, but if you read my novel Near Dark, there's a little something that happens at the end there that pops up at the beginning of this book. Again, doesn't matter if you read Near Dark or not, but if you are a long long-time reader and you have read that novel, there's going to be a little something there that's fun for the long-time reader. So this is a different approach for me. I've got 3 storylines going. You don't really see the bad guys till the very end of the book, which is something interesting. This is really a lot of tension and intrigue and plot twists. You get action in there and all that kind of stuff. But it was a different way of approaching the material, which keeps it fresh for me, not only as the writer, because I really believe there's an old Robert Frost quote that says, "No surprise in the writer, no surprise in the reader." So that's the goal for me. Having grown up the son of a United States Marine and a flight attendant, my parents were really serious about our work ethic, good Midwestern family. And they said, no matter what you do, strive to be the best. If you're a broom pusher, you be the best broom pusher there is. That was always their thing. So for me, the challenge every year is to raise the bar higher and higher and to give people even better books, to give them an even greater thrill ride. So what's funny with this one, Andy, is where the idea came from, which I love geopolitics. So I love to do these espionage, counterterrorism thrillers set against a big geopolitical set piece. And I had learned something a couple of years ago that I never knew, which was that France had pulled out of NATO at one point in NATO's history. It's kind of like the hokey pokey. They left their right foot in and they took their left foot out. And I didn't know that NATO used to be headquartered in Paris, right behind the Arc de Triomphe, that there's an actual building that was built there shaped like an A. And de Gaulle was very brassy, very arrogant, some might say, and he wanted France to be put on the same footing with the US and the Brits. And we said, no, you're not going to get that. So de Gaulle created all these problems. We pulled equipment, air bases, things like that out of France. And the current headquarters in Brussels, that's why NATO's in Brussels and not in Paris. And you'll probably remember this, and so will several of the viewers. In the 1960s, John F. Kennedy had a real big problem when a Russian defector to the United States revealed that the French government was completely shot through with Soviet spies. Right. So in the 1960s, they referred to this Russian defector as Topaz. And Leon Uris had done a thriller called Topaz about this this time in history. And it was one of Hitchcock's earliest movies. And it's really fascinating. Hitchcock did a whole thing. And I looked at that when I learned about, NATO moved out of Paris, moved to Brussels. About the same time, there was this big problem that Kennedy had with all these spies in France. And I thought, okay, this is really interesting because now that the UK has Brexited and left Europe, the French are trying to become the military powerhouse in the EU. They're working very quietly with the Ukrainians, sending lots of equipment there because they want their military to use French equipment. And the French want to become the premier practitioners of drone warfare. So they've sent all of these military people over there to learn how the Ukrainians are using drones against the Russians. And so I had this big kind of stew swimming around in my head. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to do a novel about the same thing happening again in the intelligence community in France of being shot through with spies? But what might the Russians want? And that was the big thing. That's the MacGuffin, as Hitchcock refers to it. Yeah. So I opened the book with a Russian defector going into Norway, a French intelligence officer learning about something and being murdered in the beginning of the book. And then my main character, I did something with Harvath that I've never done before, which is the U.S. wants Harvath to spy against a colleague, someone from an allied nation. I don't want to reveal it. People can see it in the book. And Harvath refuses. So they blackmail Harvath. The CIA blackmails my main character into service for the United States. He's always said yes. So one time he said no, and they blackmailed him. And I thought, how would that play out? So all of that, I'm really showing you how the sausage is made, but that's all the stuff that went into my mind in coming up with the idea for Shadow of Doubt. But I've had so many people say, this is your best book ever. It is, you just came at the material in a different way. You wrote it in a different way. And I'm very, very proud of it. I think it's a fun, fast, exciting read.
Man, I am thrilled to get it. I just got it yesterday. So I've only gotten into it a little bit. When the movie is made of this, I think I'm going to be sorry that Andre the Giant is dead, because I think he would have been a great guy on the plane that's beating up the flight attendants,
Yeah, a huge guy like that. There's a couple of other guys that I've seen. In fact, there's one massive strong man that's 6'8", 320 pounds. And the guy is just a monster. And I kind of had him in my mind's eye when I was doing that scene. I mean, here's Harvath coming off one of the most difficult assignments in his lifetime. He sits down, he spends the extra money for a first-class seat, gets 3 Ziploc bags full of ice and a bourbon, and puts the bags where he's all beat up from his last assignment. And they take off, and all of a sudden there's a problem, screams coming from the back of the plane. But that's how I like to start all my books. I like to start them with a bang, with action, to really grab you from the very beginning and hold you to the end.
Something going on. And your books always end well, too. I told somebody not too long ago, I like Carol Burnett endings, not Saturday Night Live endings. And what I mean by that is that Carol Burnett, when they did a sketch, the biggest punchline was at the end. And there's a punch, and you laugh, but when Saturday Night Live became a thing, who knew where the funny part was going to be?
Right.
But when they got to the end of it, the applause sign would come on, and everybody just walk off the set. And we've all read books like that, where you go, "Is that it? Did I miss a page?" But yours always end with that Carol Burnett ending. Not quite as funny, but with a punch.
Well, that's high praise. I appreciate that. And I agree with you, because I have the same frustration with Saturday Night Live. I say I could write better endings than this, and I'm not much of a comedian. Before you and I started, when I told you that I had that summer cold, and I said that line from Chinatown that Nicholson says that summer colds are the worst. We just watched Chinatown, and I drove my wife crazy because I picked it apart. There were so many plot holes that didn't make sense. And I said, how did this movie, I said, it's beautifully acted, beautifully photographed, but there are things that they can do in the movies that you can't do in novels. So there's all these holes that don't make sense. Why did Faye Dunaway marry her dad's business partner in Chinatown? I mean, I could understand if Jack Nicholson asked her and she said, "It's because I hate my father and I wanted to get even with him." That would have filled that hole for me. But there's all these little things that didn't make sense. Still a great movie, but I liken writing a thriller to being a Swiss watchmaker. You can't leave any gears or little pieces out because the watch won't work. And as you and I might have talked about last time, Andy, I see myself as not working for Simon & Schuster. I don't work for the publisher. Right. I work for the readers. They are my employers.
Yeah.
And so I want them to be happy. I don't cheat. I don't phone it in. In fact, this book got to my publisher very late because I bit off such a difficult story to write. I forget who said that easy reading is damn hard writing. So,
boy, that's true.
You'll have a great time reading it. Everybody who reads it's going to have a great time. But I was late in getting it in and all that kind of stuff. And that's just because I won't cheat. I won't cut corners. If I'm not convinced, that's the perfectionist in me. That's that Midwestern work ethic. If it's not perfect, I'd rather be late with it. We changed the pub date by a couple of weeks, and that's why, because my publisher wanted it and I wouldn't give it up. I'm like, it's not ready. It's not ready. It's not ready. I can't put it out there. But
fiction,
in the end,
a lot of people I think, don't understand that fiction has to be truer than nonfiction. Fiction has to ring truer than nonfiction, because if you write a nonfiction book and you say, the ants were on the sidewalk and they were as big as chihuahuas and they were building a pyramid on the sidewalk, if you're writing a nonfiction book like that, somebody would go, "Wow, well, it's nonfiction. I guess they are." But if you write that in a fiction book, people go, "Well, that's stupid. That would never happen."
Sorry.
So I was just going to say, so fiction books have to ring true, and that's harder to do than just writing the facts.
So you're very wise, Andy, and you're actually, without knowing it, you are paraphrasing Mark Twain, who said the difference between fiction and reality is people expect fiction to make sense. So
wow, there's a great quote.
Isn't it great? Yeah.
Yeah, man. I don't know if you ever run into people like this, but I've written fiction books and nonfiction books. And so occasionally I'll run into people that are like, I only read nonfiction.
Yeah,
It's like, okay, so I guess you're better than me. It's like, I only read non. It's like, I haven't got time for something that's, and I've had smart people tell me that, but and for a long time I thought, well, why do I read both? Why do I think both are necessary? And the reason I think both are necessary is I think that nonfiction will give you the facts, but fiction will ignite your imagination in a way that the facts never can. And if you only read the facts and you don't have the imagination to apply those facts in a different way that everybody else who was reading that book got the facts, then you're in the same boat as everybody else. There's got to be some ignition of your imagination to be able to be a balanced person and to be able to move ahead.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. When people tell me they only read nonfiction, I say, gosh, I feel so sorry for you. You're missing out.
Really?
I just, Harlan Coben was just, who I love Harlan. He's a great writer and just a fantastic human being. And I just saw a clip of Harlan talking about some recent scientific data that talk about how much more developed your brain is if you read fiction. You become more empathetic, your intelligence rises, your heart rate goes down. There's all of these actual physical and mental benefits from reading fiction. So I'm a big believer. And I love my nonfiction. My kids joke, and it's not theirs originally, but they've seized it and they make the joke all the time. They said that once you hit middle age as a father, you have two choices. You get into World War II history or smoked meats. You have to pick one. Smoking your own meats.
I have chosen both. I've chosen both.
Nothing wrong. You got your big green egg or whatever you got, and then you've got your Eric Larson and other great stuff. Eric Larson fictionalizes history, I should say. So that's not completely nonfiction, but one of the best books I've ever read. It's funny, my editor's husband was the editor of it, and that's In the Garden of Beasts by Eric Larson.
Yeah, I read
that.
So
all about nobody in the U.S. in the 30s wanted to be the ambassador to Germany. And this professor from the University of Chicago stands up and says, I'll do it. And how the scales kind of fall away from his eyes when he gets over there and sees what's going on. It's a perfect book. I have read it again and again and again and never found any typos. It's perfect. So I always tease my editor. I said, maybe you can have your husband read my manuscript just once through so I can have one perfect book without any typos.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. So who do you read? I mean, I realized, I don't know, within the past 4 or 5 years that I read different people expecting different learning experiences. Who do you read that teaches you story? Who do you think that is they are just the best at story, just building a story?
Well, so it's funny. So I don't read any of my contemporaries when I'm writing because I don't want their voice to kind of somehow via osmosis or whatever work their way in. It's hard for me to feel this way, but I guess I'm approaching kind of elder statesman position in my industry, having been at it for over 2 decades. So I'm normally reading new authors. I have stacks. Like if I turn the camera around, I have stacks of manuscripts on my conference room table. People who are asking me, would you blurb my book? So I've got a lot of those. So I read a lot of up and coming authors. Kyle Mills, who was a friend of mine, he took over the Vince Flynn series, and right. I've always loved Kyle Mills. I'm a big fan of Steve Berry. I think Steve's a great writer. I mean, there's so much. There's a great new young thriller writer named Connor Sullivan who's wonderful, and I love his stuff. He did a book called Wolf Trap that was really good. So it's funny when I'm writing. And in my research phase, I'm doing a lot of nonfiction, so that's necessary.
Right.
And then when I'm not writing, I'm reading these manuscripts of the young and up-and-coming authors. So it really is kind of a small window where I do get to read my contemporaries, which is fine with me. One day I'll retire and I'll have just all of these great books because I still buy them, even if I can't read them because of my scheduling.
You're not going to retire. You're not going to retire.
Someday, I'll tell you the greatest book I've read recently, and it's not fiction, but I have bought it. I know it's a really good book if I buy it to give away to my friends.
Right.
And I just bought Arthur Brooks's book from 2 years ago called Strength to Strength.
Strength to Strength.
Arthur Brooks used to run a think tank in DC. He talks a lot about the fact that, like it or not, our abilities start to curve downwards as we get into our 40s. And this, how we try to beat that. We try to work harder and all this kind of stuff, but we have this fluid intelligence curve that goes down. And we have, it is a fascinating thing about finding your place and making peace with things changing in your life as you go into middle age and kind of hopping on to the next thing in middle age and how to use what you've learned in life. It's a Strength to Strength by Arthur Brooks. I cannot say enough good things about it. And I'm going to be 55 coming up in a few weeks here. And this book spoke to me on so many different levels that, like I said, I've now bought like stacks of it and I'm handing it out like candy to all my buddies because I see a lot of guys approaching retirement. I've seen guys take early retirement and their marriages have crashed because they've lost purpose in their lives and things like that. So anybody who's listening who knows somebody, and the book is geared towards men and women, not just men, but Strength to Strength by Arthur Brooks. I can't say enough good things about it. Fabulous, easy to read, and not a big book.
Right. That's awesome. Who do you read that you think writes well? I mean, that you read their writing and you think this is just another level. Do you ever read anybody that kind of blows you away so much that you think, I don't even think I could do this?
Yeah. So the one book that I've read in the last 5 to 10 years that really like slowed me down, like I read slower because the book was so beautifully written and I did not want it to end, was All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. I thought that book was so incredibly written that was my one, that was the one book that I would allow my piece of fiction that I would allow myself to read while I was writing, because for me, that set the bar way up here. And just the way he would describe things and to have a blind character and how she was interacting with the world. And I watched I think Netflix made the movie of it. I think that's who did. And the movie was fantastic and everything, but it was not like the experience of reading that book. So that's one of the most beautifully written books. And I have to tell you, I think Daniel Silva is a very good writer. I think he writes beautifully. I really think he is a beautiful writer. So
I love the way James Lee Burke writes. I mean, he can describe Louisiana and I mean, man, you can just see it. I think he's getting weirder as he gets older. I haven't, I've never met him, but his main character, Dave Robichaux, there's a lot of ghosts and stuff starting to show up in these books. So
it does become therapy for the author. I'll tell you that. There's a lot of my family jokes, particularly my dad. I live in Tennessee. My dad's up in the Midwest, and he will say a lot of bourbon in this book. A lot of coffee, a lot of bourbon. He'll pick out little things. So it is funny, and I think probably. With him, you're seeing with Robichaux, you're seeing things from the author's own life. There's probably, I think authors work a lot of things out in their writing. So whether it's, you're contemplating aging, where do you fit in the world? Are people going to remember you after you're gone? I think there's a lot of contemplating your own mortality that probably does end up being reflected in the protagonists in these books. I've always said that Scot Harvath is my alter ego, just the way I'm sure that Clancy was, that Jack Ryan was for Clancy and Bond was for Ian Fleming. I think there's you have to really identify, particularly with a franchise character as the author, for it to ring true. So I think there's a lot of psychoanalysis is the wrong word, but I think you know what I'm talking about. I think authors work a lot of things through those characters.
Absolutely. And you try not to get too preachy with what you really believe.
You can either make money or you can make statements. And if you make statements, you're not going to make money. So you do have to remind yourself constantly that this is entertainment, because I've watched some authors take it way too far. I've got some contemporaries that are lovely people, but I look at some of the reviews and people complain, I'm trying to get away from this part of the world right now. If I want that, I can turn on my TV and see people yelling at each other. I'm trying to escape with my books.
Exactly. And you look at that and go, wow, do you want, you got a 50% audience right there. I mean, because you can bet 50% of America are not buying your books.
Well, exactly. That's always been the thing I've said in interviews when people have asked me about that. Is I said, why would I open up, and I use a lyric from a song, an old song from the 70s, but I said, why would I open up a delicatessen and hang a sign in front saying no blacks, no Jews, and no gays? Why would you do that? Why would you decide to cut out these are your fellow countrymen and women. These are fellow citizens. And why would you want to pursue any business from a position of subtraction rather than addition, right? Yeah. I look to grow my business and grow my readership. So I may have characters that take certain positions or have discussions with each other, but I try to balance it and I try to treat the characters in good faith if there's an issue that they're dealing with. Like, hey, you can't go in there without a search warrant, kind of a thing. Like if you're doing that, when that one FBI guy's a little crooked and, there's a local cop there and you kind of flip it and you think the cop's going to be crooked. It turns out to be the FBI guy. And they talk about the morality of, okay, yeah, we may stop something on the other side, but we broke the law to get there, and fruit of the forbidden tree that happens in the chain of evidence and all this kind of stuff. So, right. But I agree with you 100%. Andy, you can't cut people out. You want to be as open as possible for people, because listen, the book business is a hard business. People would rather do this all day on their phones, a lot of them. And this is what I find that's interesting. It takes a lot of self-discipline to sit down, shut everything else out, and read a book. It is an enjoyable, relaxing, wonderful pastime, but you have to set the phone down. You have to, not be on the internet and things like that. So it is interesting culturally. So
remember the Michael Jordan quote, Republicans buy shoes too.
Sneakers. Yeah. Buy shoes too. Exactly.
Hey, here's one question that I have always wanted to ask somebody of your stature. And that is, do you listen to your audiobooks? I mean, by the time you write a book, if you're like me, you're so kind of sick of it. As many times you have to reread it and reread the edits and reread for typos and then go the blue line. And then by the time they send you the audiobook, it's like, I can't even bear to listen to this. So do you listen to your audiobooks?
I do. I've got it's really funny because I've got a Broadway trained actor who I've become buddies with over the years of doing the books. His name is Armand Schultz. And I do, because it's been, and here's why. By the time you get that book, you got it yesterday, you said, and it goes on sale August 6th, you've got that book in your hand. By the time I'm out doing these interviews, there's been a long gap since I've seen anything in the book. Right. So I can put on that audiobook while I'm working out or if I'm doing a long drive, like going up to visit my dad, whatever. And I can completely be refreshed as to everything that's in the book. So if I get asked a question in interviews, I'm good and I'm ready to do it. So for me, it is a preparation tool, but it's also an enjoyment because Armand is so good. People say, why don't you read your own books? Because I can't do all the accents and keep the voices straight and everything. And just to talk about the narrator, one extra story, it's really funny because Armand's tall, he's super handsome, and he does a lot of television commercials. So he, for my entire career, has been the voice of my protagonist, Scot Harvath. And I have a TV in my kitchen, and I had it on one morning. I was cooking breakfast and everything. And it was so funny because all of a sudden I heard Scot Harvath behind me asking me about my cholesterol, if I'd had my cholesterol checked. And I looked up, and there's Armand standing, doing like a Crestor commercial, standing in Central Park, querying people as they walk by. It was just very funny to hear that voice, but to hear it in another context other than what I'm used to. So
I knew that you listened to your books.
Really?
You know how I knew?
How?
There's no mispronunciations in them. That drives me nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, because I think I know when I do them, I've got a producer that's in the studio with me reading along, and he'll go, I think you want to pronounce that so and so. I mean, I wrote it and I'll still mispronounce something.
They call me if they're in the middle of doing the book in New York and they've got a word and they don't know. They're like, hey, we could pronounce it this way or this way. My phone rings. So I know when they're recording, and I keep my phone on and I'm available, and they'll say, hey, check your email. We just recorded it 2 ways. What's the right way? Or, hey, we're about to record it. Here's the 2 ways we think it could be said. So yeah, it is a very, the audio department of Simon & Schuster have been one of the biggest joys of my writing career to work with them, because they are it is incredible. Across the board at Simon & Schuster, they're all pros, including the audio department. So that's kind of fun that I get to listen in a little bit from Nashville while they're working in New York and all that stuff.
I almost cringe sometimes listening to a new James Lee Burke book, because the guy who does it is a famous actor. And I mean, and I love his voice. I love his narration. But for 20 books, he has pronounced 2 words wrong. And these words are probably, they're in the books probably 5 or 6 or 7 times each.
Pontchartrain and something else.
No. One is brim. You know, bluegills, brim, brim and bass, but it's spelled B-R-E-A-M. And so he says bream. And no fisherman has ever caught a bream.
Right.
You know, and it drives me nuts. And the other is Piro. The G is silent in that.
It's like the Carpenters song.
Yep. He says pirogue.
Oh no, you got to pull your Piro down on the bayou. Yeah, no way. Come on, man.
But it kills me, because I think, is nobody from Louisiana or from the South listening to this ever?
Yeah. Have they not received one single constructive, hey, by the way, you know? Yeah, that's too bad.
But I heard one the other day where the narrator said that something that they were particularly good at, and said that was their fort.
Oh no, instead of forte. Yeah. Oh boy.
But it's just, it kills me.
We could put a man on the moon. We've got the equivalent in our hands of what NASA had, computing power, and we're not getting smarter. That is the saddest thing of all.
We're not. Well, buddy, this book, I wish you great success with this book. And I'm going to be pushing this. I'm going to be actually finishing this book on a couple of flights I've got coming up. So
excellent. Well, thank you, Andy. And thank you for having me back. I appreciate you, appreciate your audience. And listen, my goal is I want you to have your toes in the sand, book in the hand. I just want you to have a fun time. And I think this is probably one of the most exciting, twisty, turny, surprising thrillers I've ever written. So I hope you really enjoy it.
It's already got me. One more question before we go. How can we help you?
You're so nice. I got to tell you, I'm good. Just sharing me with your audience is word of mouth is the best thing that an author can have. You know that as a fellow scribe. There's nothing better than somebody saying, hey, give this man, give this woman, give him a shot. So that's always my favorite story is I hear a grandpa gave a grandson a book, or an aunt gave a nephew a book, or mom or dad was reading it and one of the kids picked it up. So that for me is the best. You've already done it by having me on the show.
Well, I appreciate it. And I've got one more question. One more thing. And this is, I wonder, do you have people come up to you and talk to you about your books and they get the names of your books wrong?
No, I'll tell you what ends up. Let me tell you a quick story. My wife and I were out walking in a park in Nashville, and it's really funny. I have a contemporary, wonderful author named Jack Carr at Simon and Schuster.
You are Jack Carr's literary daddy.
Well, so one of my best friends was in the SEAL teams, and he came to me when Jack was getting out. Jack was working on a book and said, "Would you speak with him and offer him some advice?" And I said, "Absolutely." It's because of men and women who go out. There's no American dream without those willing to protect it. So when my SEAL buddy said, "Hey, would you speak to someone from the community?" I said, "Yes." So my wife and I are out walking in Nashville, and Nashville has a great reputation, Andy, because nobody bugs you. You don't have to be a big celebrity. You're a minor celebrity. Nobody bugs you. But this gentleman, two gentlemen are walking, coming towards us on this walking path, and they stop. And this man says, "I am so sorry. I know we don't do this in Nashville, but I just have to tell you how many hours of enjoyment you've given me. I love your books. You are just such an incredible writer. And I would have felt terrible if I'd walked by you and not acknowledged that and said thank you." And I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm touched." And he says, No, I mean it. You're fabulous. And I really love your stuff. And in front of my wife, I'm so proud, right? I'm bursting my buttons there. I was really, really proud. And I said, "Thank you, sir." And my wife and I walked, these two gentlemen walked the other way, and I heard that guy turn to his buddy and say, "Do you know who that was? That was Jack Carr." Son of a... So what I have happen is that people will sometimes, the book titles, they'll remember a story and think it was this title and it wasn't. But what I do get is that we kind of have a small loop, or not a closed loop, but a group of us that write these particular characters. And sometimes I'll have people show up on social media and say something about a book that I did not write. Oh, no, that's a Mitch Rapp book by Vince Flynn. I did not write that. So you do get that, but it's great because we I don't see these guys as competition, Andy. There's 365 days in a year. You can read more than one book in the year. And
yes,
we find that we all have a lot of bosses in common, to go back to the readers being our employers. So we share a lot of readers, which is actually quite nice. So it's a good part of my business.
I think you're going to hear this book referred to with the wrong title. They're going to come up to you all the time and they're going to say, "I love your book, Shadow of a Doubt."
Of a Doubt. The A is going to get
Shadow of
added.
a Doubt. Yeah. I have a book called The Traveler's Gift. I have another one called The Noticer. Another one called The Heart Mender. And I have people all the time that come up to me and say, "Your book, The Traveler's Guide, it changed my life. I love this." And that book about the old man, The Watcher, and the heart monitor, it killed me.
Oh, the heart monitor. Oh my God.
I mean, it's
what
just
a terrible title that would have been.
So it's hilarious to us. Yeah. But thank you, buddy. Thank you so much for being with us. And anything we can ever do, you give us a call.
I will do, Andy. Same here. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye-bye. I'm Andy Andrews, the professional noticer, harnessing common sense and wisdom to plow through challenges all the way to an answer for you. And I think that'll do it for this week. Get us out of here, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to the boys and girls who aspire to become, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of another episode of The Professional Noticer, the official podcast of the Orange Beach Lady High School Varsity Makos. In a world where common sense has become a superpower, I'm harnessing what tiny bit of mental energy I have for you, seeking wisdom, making observations, and endeavoring to answer tough questions in a way that will empower your family and your business. I'm Andy Andrews. Until next week, goodbye. This episode of The Professional Noticer was produced by Matt Limpert. The Noticer theme written and performed by Sugarcane Jane. Disappearing ink for the cast and crew provided by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills. Additional financial consideration provided by predeclinedcredit.com. Are you drowning in debt? Do you struggle to make your Cadillac payments? Is Netflix eating your lunch? If so, it's time to register at predeclinedcredit.com. Are you amazed that despite your financial situation, credit card companies continue to offer you pre-approved credit cards? Sure, it's tempting to say, what's another $5,000 in debt? After all, I'm pre-approved. But the wise thing to do is remove the temptation. By registering in our database, your credit score will show as non-existent. Since you won't be approved to borrow any amount ever again, which saves you the stress of applying, all credit card companies, banks, and mortgage brokers will remove you from their mailing list. In essence, you'll be pre-declined for a loan of any kind and headed for a debt-free life. You'll be proud of yourself, your family will be proud of you, and Dave Ramsey will be ecstatic. Join now. We are predeclinedcredit.com.